Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into real estate investing. Today, we're going deep on property taxes with MD White. He's got over 25 years in the game, so let's unpack his strategies.
What's interesting is how many people see property taxes as this fixed cost. But MD White really emphasizes the control you can have.
Yeah, that's a great point. And he starts off by talking about understanding those local tax laws. It seems obvious, but he really stresses not skimming over that.
Right. And it's not just theory. He shares the story about a local ordinance, a tax break for historic properties. Just by knowing the local rules, he saved thousands.
See, that's huge. And this ties into his whole thing about challenging property assessments. Makes it sound less daunting, more strategic.
Totally. He's all about regularly comparing your property value to similar ones nearby. If something seems off, don't just accept it. Build your case and appeal. It's about making sure what you're paying is fair.
So it's all about being proactive, not just about the market, but the rules affecting your investment.
Exactly. And that goes beyond assessments. MD White talks about those homestead exemptions, energy efficiency incentives. Easy to overlook those savings.
Okay, let's get to the pro-level stuff. MD White mentions tax classifications. Is that Mother 31 exchanges? Sounds a bit like financial jargon to me, honestly. Can you break those down?
Sure. Think of tax classifications as like categories the IRS uses for your property. It affects your rates, deductions. MD White gives this example where he classified a property as a rental, not his main residence major tax savings.
Wow, that's a powerful strategy.
It is. And then with N31 exchanges, imagine you're swapping one rental for another, but without the immediate tax hit on the profit.
Okay, so understanding these nuances is key.
Totally. And MD White emphasizes that real estate's a long game. It's not just the initial purchase, but how those factors play out over time.
He talks about staying informed about changes in laws. That sounds like a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, it can be. Even just setting aside some time for research, maybe subscribing to some relevant publications can make a difference. Knowledge is power, as they say.
It's like having that inside edge.
Absolutely. He's all about continuous learning.
But even with all the research, sometimes you just need to bring in expert help.
100%. And to his credit, he's very upfront about that. He readily admits that there are times, especially when dealing with those larger, more complex investments, where consulting a tax professional or a real estate attorney is essential.
So it's knowing your limits, knowing when to call for backup.
Precisely. And what I like is how approachable he makes these complex topics seem. He wants people to feel empowered, not overwhelmed. And you know where that expert guidance can be super valuable?
Yeah.
Managing those tax escrow accounts. MD White points out that many first-time investors don't even think about that.
Right, you just assume that part of the process is being handled, but he's really adamant about not being passive there.
Absolutely. Regularly review those escrow account statements, he says. Make sure those payments are accurate, on time, and really understand how that balance is calculated.
So staying engaged even when someone else is technically handling it.
Exactly. And that whole budgeting aspect, too. MD White is big on incorporating property taxes into your overall financial planning. Not just a one-time expense, but an ongoing factor that affects your long-term returns.
Yeah, he talks about anticipating those potential increases in property taxes, how that plays into profitability down the line.
Right. And he's a fan of exploring those tax deferral strategies, potentially offsetting those increases, keeping more money working for you longer.
He mentioned something called opportunity zone investments. That one caught my eye. What are those exactly?
So picture economically distressed areas that the government has designated for these tax incentives. It's about encouraging investment, revitalization. When you invest in real estate or businesses in these opportunity zones, you can potentially defer those capital gains taxes, maybe even reduce them.
So it's kind of like aligning your investing with a social good while potentially seeing those financial benefits too.
You got it. Win-win. And MD White uses this as an example of thinking outside the box. Those opportunities are out there.
It's about seeing that bigger picture.
For sure. And that's where someone like MD White, with his experience, he just connects those dots. He's not just looking at a single property, but the entire ecosystem around it.
He seems to have a knack for finding those hidden gems.
Totally. And he's not shy about sharing that knowledge either. He wants other investors to succeed.
It's great to see that kind of generosity, especially from someone who's clearly at the top of his game.
Absolutely. It speaks to his passion for real estate. It's more than just the money for him. He genuinely enjoys it.
You can really hear that in how he talks about it. It's like a game of strategy for him.
Exactly. He's explaining the why, the thought process behind it all.
It's inspiring. Makes you want to level up your own game.
Yeah, for sure. He has that energy, it's contagious.
And he finishes by saying that even with all this knowledge he's sharing, there's still huge value in having a guide, someone who's been there, done that.
Right. He's big on getting professional advice when you need it. Everyone's situation is different. Sometimes you need that individual guidance, especially with real estate and taxes.
Makes you think, even with his experience, he still sees the value in having a team.
Exactly. It's not about knowing everything, it's knowing when to ask for help. That's smart investing, really.
So for our listeners ready to jump in, unlock their potential, what's the best way to connect with MD White, tap into that expertise?
Well, they can dig into those articles on Medium. He's got a ton of information there. But for that personal touch, that one-on-one, his website's the way to go. TheRealMDWhite.com.
TheRealMDWhite.com. Gets stuck in your head. Kind of fits his style, right? Straightforward, no nonsense.
Totally. He's about results, not hype, and his track record speaks for itself.
So for those serious about real estate, MD White sounds like the perfect partner.
Couldn't agree more. His insights are golden, and that guidance could be the key to a whole new level of success.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into real estate, guided by the wisdom of MD White. Remember, knowledge is power, and with the right approach and the right team, you can reach those goals. Until next time, happy investing.